The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Optimized, a marketing performance podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm Janet Rosseth, your host, a 25-year veteran of multifamily marketing. And I'm hoping that this session today is going to help you bring just 1% better to your personal or professional life, whether it's via work processes or data sets that can help you make better decisions, or kicking up recommendations. We'll uncover 1% better today, and I think our guest is going to help us. So today I am super excited. We have Lauren Dewey here with us, and she actually has a lot of experience on taking up those recommendations and marketing your marketing. So Lauren, you ready to join for an episode of Optimize today?
I'm so ready. So excited to be here.
Fantastic. So you and I met. I always like to talk about how we met because one of the very first Optimized podcasts, Tara Samuels was on, and we were talking about the importance of building your network and just, reaching across the lines a little bit when you're out at conferences and have an opportunity to introduce someone via, networks that you share. And you and I met through Anthony Paganucci, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yes. Okay. And then I literally was standing in line at the Multifamily Marketing East Conference saying like, gosh, I really have not run into Lauren Dewey except for conversation.
There it was.
And you were standing behind me. And I think Cara Rafferty was actually about to introduce us. And I was like, we've met.
We know each other. And then we couldn't escape each other at NAA. We ran into each other every 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, which was hilarious because there had to have been thousands of people there, and yet I kept running into the same 4 or 5 people every time I came out into a hallway. It was fantastic.
So funny. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I suppose we were all in the marketing sessions, right? But
yes.
we were in the same area.
Yeah.
But it was very fun. And now you have joined our online marketing community and become a voice that we love hearing from. And here we are recording the Optimized podcast. So,
Great.
Do you want to just take us through, give us the history of Lauren's journey in multifamily marketing?
Yes. I think it started out very similarly to most everyone's journey. And I sort of tripped and fell into the world of multifamily without intending to be there. Right after college, I wanted to get a job in marketing. I started out at a company that called their leasing consultants marketing representatives. Which sort of saw marketing, it hit apply. And then in realizing what the position was, I said, I'll do this for a year and, see where I end up from there. And of course, here I am in the industry more than 12 years later. So after a couple of years of the leasing and operations side, I sort of elbowed my way into a corporate marketing position.
Oh, I love the sound of that.
Yeah. And there was not much happening in the way of multifamily focused marketing and in digital focused marketing. So I sort of just kind of took that up and built a lot of really great stuff over the 8+ years I've been at that. And now here I am on my own. So it's been a fun journey.
I think that is fantastic. And I really want to unpack a little bit of that. Not only how you elbowed your way into it, but how you just looked for opportunity. I think half of the marketing position in multifamily is making eye contact at things that nobody else is looking at. Sometimes that lands your plate filled with stuff that maybe shouldn't have been on the marketer's plate, but you're fixing problems, right?
Yeah.
It's a problem-solving role in the multifamily industry. So tell me more about how you elbowed your way in there. Was there not a position that existed previous to you getting there?
There was. I'm a big proponent of elbowing your way into most things.
Right. Create the job you want and go get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was doing a lease up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and just sort of pick stuff up that needed to be picked up. And I really fell in love with it. And it really kind of reconciled what I always wanted to do with what I had been doing. And I was very fortunate to work for an organization that welcomed that and encouraged that and said, give us more of that, and was able to build out a role for myself that started out being very specific to digital strategy, to social media strategy, brand management on our residential side, and sort of just grew it from there.
I love it. How big was the portfolio?
About 5,000 units. Probably about, at the time that I took the role on, it was probably more like 3,500 units.
And you yourself and you? Or did you have a team?
Funny, so it was a fully integrated firm.
So a lot of marketers who share the role, like me, myself, and I.
Yes. So it was a little me, myself, and I, in that on the residential side, that was sort of my world. But I did have a team to lean on. It was a fully integrated firm, so there was other asset class types, construction, investment. Nice. So I was lucky to have some other marketing folks in the trenches with me.
Good. Very good. Awesome. So what did you find were the biggest challenges of the role?
So multifamily marketers have to move fast in an industry that moves slow. Commercial real estate, we lag in technology, we lag in seeing the value, the ROI of marketing. So you are frequently put in a situation where you have to measure your marketing, because if you can't measure it, how do you defend it? And you have to defend it to get your budget. And if you can't get your budget, then how do you do it? So you're sort of constantly cycling through that over and over again and figuring out ways to overcome those challenges.
So true. I think it can be challenging too when you are one of many corporate departments, all vying for room in the corporate budget or across property budgets.
Yes.
And, half of the battle of this position, I think, and I'm curious what your experience has been too, but that we're often vying for those budgets, solve problems that we see based on data that we read. But then we have to train it and lead it across teams that don't report to us.
Yes.
So just like you just said, you defend your budget in order to kick up those recommendations that are needed, but then it's on you to produce the results with a team that you don't necessarily solely lead.
Absolutely. There's a lot of middle murky ground in there. There's not a super smooth handoff between leasing, marketing, and operations. And a lot of what marketing does has an impact on leasing, and a lot of what leasing does has an impact on marketing, which is why I think that as a marketer, it's such a collaborative position to be in. And I always tie it back to goals. I think that's the most important thing in marketing. Your marketing and being successful as a marketer is making sure that you're checking in frequently. Are these still the goals? Have the goals changed? What do you feel the goals are? Are they the same as my goals? And then that we're all moving in the same direction.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you are speaking my language. I always loved rolling out new initiatives and making sure that the team was really aware of what we hoped to achieve. It's almost like, here's my hypothesis. Here's what I see as the problem. Here's what we've chosen to roll out to bring the solution. And here's my hypothesis that, on first 90 days, we're going to achieve X. But our goal is to strive for Y.
Right.
So,
exactly.
It's not going to be like a launch and leave it. We're not just going to launch it. It's going to solve all the problems. We have to actually work it and get there together. And we might
being transparent about that timeline. Yeah, yes. Exactly. Yes. Knowing every kind of, it's interesting because you don't want to give too much information. You don't want to overcomplicate. They don't care what your click-through rate is. They don't care about your impression share, but timeline, major milestones. This is what I'm measuring. So just transparency, collaboration, communication.
For sure. For sure. Tell me do you have any examples of projects that you launched that required you to kind of come at this experience of, measuring the data in order to prove out the recommendation and then launching it with success?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's always how I sort of approached any new project was I call it my GAPS method, and I'll explain it. So I think every time I take on a new project, I think GAPS, which is gather, analyze, predict, strategize. And I always bring myself back to that place. Whenever I feel like I might be missing the forest for the trees, or I might kind of not have my compass, it's always goals and GAPS. That's always what I go back to.
Spell that out one more time. Goals.
Gather. and GAPS is gather, analyze, predict, strategize.
Love it. Okay.
So that's my sort of constant cycle in my marketer brain. So, I mean, the big project that sticks out was as my time as director of marketing and national development, we rolled out a property called 7 Inc., which was Boston's first co-living property. So that was a big challenge. New product type to a new market. It was just a year or so past COVID. So there was a lot of hesitancy on, is co-living still a thing? So that took a lot of creativity, and that took a lot of, it was really awareness focused. It was really education focused. You had to teach people what this product was. Buy the bedroom leasing isn't something that really happens in Boston in a large scale luxury property. So, we were able to put a strategy together that really kind of front loaded that education and awareness piece into the pre-leasing budget, which, as you know, is always much more nice to look at than that stabilization budget that shrinks down to practically nothing. So that was a huge success for us from a marketing standpoint. And we can talk more about this, but I built a really great case study based off of that. I think case studies are great tools for marketers to use when they need to champion their initiatives and tell a success story. So I think anytime you win, you should write a case study about that win and be prepared to share it when applicable.
That's a great idea. I know, especially, if you spent how many years in that role?
I was in that role that role and adjacent roles for about 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
So just looking back on my own experience, and your talk about creating a case study when you have a win, that's such a great idea, because I think, you launch something new, it crosses the finish line, it's successful, you're moving on right away. But when you come back again 6 months later or a year later and you've got a new recommendation, this position, we rarely do the same thing twice, right? Unless it's developing across the whole portfolio. But sometimes it's different people involved in that equation. It might be a whole different region. It might be a different property. It might be a different set of owners. And so your credibility doesn't necessarily speak easily because they don't have experience with you yet. Exactly. So what a great idea to create case studies in your own position, in your own work. Even though you're in the same role, you might be leading a different project with different stakeholders.
Right. You never know when you're going to need to tell a little success story to a new group of people for a new product.
How about a little lookbook to look back on your own career moments when you're feeling a little defeated and just need a win?
Like a little, and that too, if you're having a bad day and you need to look back at some past victories, it's great for that too.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you think, I love your GAPS process and putting that together, where do you think the starting point is on developing that recommendation? Because it never just comes at the point of recommendation. It comes at the point of discovering where the problem is, right?
Right. Well, I think that's where it always starts at goals and alignment of those goals. So whether it's a stabilized property that you're in that sort of just keeping the lights on mode, or if it's a new lease up, or if it's a new repositioning, it's always checking in on, are we at the right occupancy for this property? Are there any problems that need to be solved? As you said, marketers, we're problem solvers. So where are the, no pun intended, where are the gaps in achieving these goals? Where do I need to dig in a little bit further? And then you sort of start pulling your data and applying that strategy to things.
So have you ever come across the occasion where your recommendation was not approved? Because that happens to the marketer every once in a while.
It does. Well, I think it can happen a lot less when you're really focused on goal alignment. I think, you've told me that the goals are A, B, and C. So I propose X, Y, and Z. And I think when you follow that strategy, you're going to see more success, but it's not perfect. And I feel like that rejection happens for usually one of two reasons. And the first reason is you don't have the right budget, right? You proposing 10 grand, they only want to give you 7,500. So what do you do in that situation? I think you just get collaborative and you get creative and you say, okay, well, let's talk about what a $7,500 version of this plan looks like. And what are you going to lose? What are you going to take out? And if this $7,500 version achieves, goals A, B, and C, let's talk about then growing it to 10,000, which is actually something I typically recommend is kind of starting smaller and then growing
Yeah.
to the big, because that really helps eliminate marketing waste.
Yep.
But that's usually what I would say if it's a budget issue. The other issue I've run into a few times is if you have a stakeholder that has a very specific solution in mind that they want. They've decided like this is a
Mm-hmm.
problem solved by Facebook ads, and I won't hear another thing about it. And so then you're in the position where you can kind of flip that accountability over to them. Like, well, what are you hoping to achieve from these Facebook ads? What does success look like for you on this front? How do these Facebook ads bring us closer to achieving these goals that we've talked about? And then, you whether it ends up being some sort of combination of your plan and their plan, or you run Facebook ads for 3 months or whatever it might be. I think at the end of the day, collaboration is the answer to both of those questions.
That's a great set of questions, actually, to get to the collaboration, too. I think there's a lot of marketers out there right now that are just probably approaching budget season.
Yes.
And, we've been asked across the board to do less or to do more with less this year. And so, you might have leaner teams on site or lighter ad budgets and still trying to accomplish the same conversion goals at the end of the day. So maybe coming at it with a plan A, plan B, plan C strategy is helpful.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah. And
takes
what
really
needs to
doing your
happen?
homework on what if this tool that you want to push does not get approval, then what's your next step?
What's your next plan?
How are you
Exactly.
still
Yeah.
going to fix the problem? Because if you walk away saying, oh, okay, I guess we aren't rolling that out, then you still have the problem. The problem still exists.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I think that happens often to marketers, and sometimes that defeat also comes with just winning over stakeholders.
Yes.
And the stakeholders aren't always the same. Like I said, there's regions, there's VPs, there's operations. You're crossing over multiple corporate departments. Sometimes it's an HR thing. So really trying to cover who are your stakeholders, I think, is a big question right there too. And identifying early on, who do you need to win over in order to get this to go? At the
Exactly.
end
Right.
of the
Because
day,
it's not
is it the leasing agent? Is it the property manager? Or is it the owner and the
right.
director of operations?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's not always who you think it would be.
Yeah.
So
And if
doing
you
your
achieve
homework.
it at this one property, is it going to be something that you're going to want to ask to roll out across multiple properties?
Well, you better write a case study about it if you achieve it at that one property. That'll help.
Correct. Interesting. What advice do you have for marketers listening to this episode today on, what are the top 3 things you think need to go in that case study or in that ask before you start the recommendation?
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Now, by partnering with Chadwell Supply, they'll help communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. So learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Absolutely. So I think, again, I don't want to be a broken record, but goal alignment is hugely important to this. So make sure you know your goals and everyone agrees on what the goals are. I would also say when you're coming into, maybe it's a meeting or maybe you're kicking off that conversation, asking for something, you have an initiative in mind. You have a tendency to want to kind of meet those owners and investors where they are, come with spreadsheets, come with numbers, come with metrics. But I would remember that you're a marketer, and if they wanted an analyst with a finance degree, they would have hired that, and they want a marketer to do their marketing. So be visual, bring that case study and have it branded and looking great. If your initiative or your campaign includes creative, mock it up, make a presentation deck. That's the great thing about a case study. You could bring data that would show all the same information, and you could put it in a spreadsheet or visualize that data with some graphs. But you're a marketer, so tell a story instead. Tell a beautiful visual story that's going to resonate a little bit more than maybe just some numbers on a page would.
So smart. You're drawing me back to my first probably 10 years in this industry. For 3 of them, I reported up to a CEO who was extremely creative He wanted everything we did to be more creative than everyone else in this industry. When he left, I reported to the CFO. He
Very
could
different.
care less about creativity. If I didn't bring a recommendation in a spreadsheet, it didn't even get his eyeballs. Like, forget it. So I had to really learn to be a very different kind of marketer. And the cool experience about that was that I think I developed a whole lot of an analytic side that I didn't realize I had, and I became a very
Yes.
mathy marketer.
Yes. I love mathy marketers.
Yeah, I'm a lot better at selling my ideas using the math behind it and the data behind it because it doesn't lie. If you're,
Right.
the only way it lies is if you have poor tools to record the data, which tells a
Exactly.
story right there.
Right. I find sometimes with, most of us marketers, we live in the details, and all the cool, magical things happen in those little details. And we see our click-through rate go up, 1.5%, and we're thrilled about it. And I think in starting out, you know, putting those metrics out there, putting those, like, what seemingly to non-marketers are very, very little metrics, is learning to sort of simplify that stuff, zoom out a little bit, not miss the forest for the trees, and present a bigger picture, talk about things like NOI, talk about occupancy, talk about the metrics that are important to
Yep.
all of the stakeholders.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. We had a initiative when we were trying to roll out new prop tech. It was hard to convey the value behind it, and we were able to actually convey the value in time saved for assistant managers and leasing agents. And that created this whole value of, like, it's not just about a fancy new tool or prop tech or cool websites and portals for your residents. It's specifically about labor and about time and about resources with our
Right.
on-site teams. And sometimes when you can tell that story too, you go back again to the stakeholders that you're going to pitch this recommendation to, and you got to get, like, really dialed into what's the most important to that stakeholder.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. What are their goals?
Yep, exactly. What are their goals? Yeah. So I want to shift the conversation here for a second because you and I are both now in roles as consultants, right?
Yes.
I left the industry after 20 years leading marketing teams in-house. I started consulting 7 years ago and have been kind of playing this role, assisting and serving various operators from this side of the equation. You've recently done the same, right?
I have, yes. Very
Yeah.
exciting.
So we had kind of a fun conversation about what role consultants play in this type of work when you're marketing your marketing, or you are kicking up a recommendation that has a lot of legs to it. Might be a larger project, might take just a lot more bandwidth to establish what the goal is, what the outcome needs to be, and how the rollout is going to happen. Talk to me about that. Where have you used consultants in your past, and what are you finding now on this side of the equation to be the real value, and just asking for a perspective outside of your own
Yeah. I mean, I think
organization?
there's always a certain value in bringing someone in from the outside because they can approach things from a more neutral standpoint. There's when you take them out of the environment of, well, this is my job, maybe I'm trying to get promoted, or maybe there's a politics, factor at play here, and you have someone who's just, in it to get it done and to meet the objectives. I think that's very helpful. I also think that, I can kind of Rolodex through different organizations that I've worked with, different projects that I've worked on. You have a little bit of a wider scope when you're coming in from the outside and you have experience working with different organizations or within different markets. So I think it's just a little bit of a broader view when you have a third party coming in.
Right. And I think the value of the third party too, and you and I are both doing it, is that a third party or a consultant can come in and audit where you're currently at
Yes,
and take a look
absolutely.
outside of the weeds without being consumed by all the other day-to-day actions. We have a little bit more of an ability to come in and collect the data and read the data and create the story behind what's currently happening where you want to be, and then really drawing the line between A to Z and what needs to happen to get to where you want to be.
Yeah,
So I know
exactly.
we started seeing so much friction in the leasing process between marketing and operations and leasing, getting across the finish line and really establishing where there's breakdown in the process, So we developed an audit for it. It's called a STRIDE assessment, and it has just taken on legs of its own in very quickly bridging the collaboration between those teams
Mm-hmm.
and creating more of a smooth finish, because we can establish the breakdowns within 2 to 3 weeks, where a marketer may never have time to
Exactly.
really flush through all those things and do it without blinders on.
Yeah. And I
Same thing
always
for a
say,
leasing agent without blinders on. And now you're doing the same kind of thing with an audit of tech stacks to really get dialed in on what's currently happening, what the wish list
yes,
is.
yes, exactly. And I think we can all relate, if you've worked in a kind of an owner operator marketing role, that you spend a lot of time, you don't have the time to do the things you should be doing because you're too busy doing the things you have to be doing. And there's
Oh,
this
yeah.
wish list
Reactive
or
versus proactive all the
yeah,
time.
yes. There's this wish list of like, oh, I really should look into this. I really should figure out what's going on here. I really should implement
Mhm.
this new thing. This would save me time in the long run. So I think there's a lot of reactivity, and most folks in our role, they are kind of one person shops, or they're
Yeah.
small limited teams. So bringing someone in like you or I to say, okay, well, let's figure out what's working and what's not working. Let's zoom out. Whether it's kind of across the lead to lease, functional process there, or maybe it's just, let's look at your marketing spend. What are you spending money on? What's working? Let's do some calculations. Or if it's tech stack auditing, someone who can come in and just
Yeah.
say, I'm just going to get the full bird's eye view, and then we'll put a plan together once we have all the facts.
Yeah. I always think it's a really good idea, at least once a year and maybe around budgeting time or a few months ahead of it, to just do a really high level look at what to start, stop, and continue doing. Because I
Yes,
think, especially for marketers and very small teams within organizations, we get trapped in just continuing to do what we've always done. And then we try to add one more thing to our plate and one more thing to our plate and just one more thing. And then we're doing everything at an average level.
exactly. Yeah,
And we're so busy doing the things that we don't have time anymore to look ahead and to
exactly.
forecast and to read the trends and read the reports and identify what we actually should be taking on, because we don't have the bandwidth.
Right,
So
right.
taking that high level look, I think sometimes it's an outside perspective that can see it. I've had so many clients that I've started working with because they ask me my perspective on things. And I'm like, well, do you have a marketer? What does your marketing say? And they're like, well, I haven't asked and they're really busy. Like,
Yeah, yeah. We'll start
well,
there,
let's
maybe.
start there together. Let's start unraveling that. I can help
Yeah.
unravel that and help, streamline their workload a little bit,
Right,
perhaps.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then we always know, I remember budget season, and it gets you in that headspace, and you think, well, now it's kind of too late. Now I'm already doing the budget for next year. So how do I set myself up for success for the
Yep.
following year? What do I need to be doing in February, March, and April, so that when I get to this time next year, I'm
Yep.
patting myself on the back for all the things I implemented, or all the things I set myself up for.
Exactly. Don't just budget to keep doing what you've been doing, budget to meet the goals that are set. And sometimes
Yes.
that missing piece of the goal is the experience. So, what is the prospect experience that you want to deliver, or what is the resident experience that you want to deliver, or even the employee experience
Right.
that you
Right.
want to
And I
deliver? If
and
you're
I
trying
think
to operate more lean across teams, what should the experience feel like to the employees who are still there? Are
exactly.
you just
Yeah.
asking them to do more with fewer people, or have you actually streamlined that process?
Right, right. And I think marketers need to stay nimble and flexible. And if something's not working, if something didn't work as well as you thought it was going to work, that's okay. You learned an important lesson. I think anytime you're, proven wrong, and I hate to even use that term, it's a win, because you learned and you optimized and you changed directions, and now
Yeah.
you're in a better position than you were 3 weeks ago when you thought something was working when it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, where did you reach across as a small team within an organization? Where did you reach out to learn and grow and just kind of take on new information?
So I would say that I feel very fortunate that my career started in leasing, because I always just had a ton of empathy for folks in the
Yes,
leasing office
me
and what
too.
they go through and all the hats that they wear. It's very challenging. So I always kind of took what I did and put it through the lens of the leasing office, and how can I help them sell their product better. And I would always say in training courses that, leasing is just marketing in real time. I have to be saying the same thing that you're saying. You're just saying it to a prospect and I'm saying it on a website or in an ad or something like that. We really need to make sure that we're speaking the same language. So I think it was, kind of the education into, digital marketing tools and learning how to run a paid advertising campaign or a Facebook campaign, or, learning the metrics that are important, learning what a KPI is. So kind of taking all of that growth, but always having it anchored to, at the end of the day, this is about a prospect walking into a leasing office and deciding if they want to rent here or not. So like really like
So
anchoring
true.
it to that.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. It's a great perspective really to train your leasing teams on as well, that at the end of the day, it really is about someone coming in, needing a place to call home.
Right. Why are they going to
Yeah.
choose you or somewhere else? That's
Yeah.
the answer to that
It's not
question
about
is
whether or
marketing.
not you clicked the box in the CRM. It's really about how you help them find their next home. That's
Right.
what
And
I honestly love about this industry, is that we have such a privilege in being involved in the place that people call home. There's no more special place than home.
right. Exactly. Yeah. It is a warm and fuzzy industry to be in times. For sure.
Definitely. Yes. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question here. I end every podcast as we wrap up with, how do we reach that 1% better? It's all about optimizing. And I think you and I would agree that optimizing your marketing and your marketing department is a good place to start. But what do you do personally to optimize in your personal or professional life and just try to achieve 1% better?
And I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I've always had in my office, now my home office, but I've always had just a little picture of a forest. And because we as marketers, we get so deep in the weeds, we're looking at the teeniest, tiniest little changes, and you can get lost in that really fast. So I think it's a reminder to not miss the forest for the trees and always remember what your goals are and what you're working towards, and check in with yourself frequently. Does this serve the goals? Is what I'm doing, is that working towards the goals that we're trying to achieve, or have I just completely lost my compass and I'm digging into a metric that doesn't really need to be dug into right now? So I think
That is so smart. Just that zooming out to make sure you're spending your time in the right place. I am
yeah,
one of those people that can so easily get sucked into data and just keep going deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole. And that is exactly what I
yeah,
need to do
because
when
it's
I'm hitting
fascinating
that
stuff.
point, to zoom out.
Yeah, zoom out, zoom out.
Very smart. I love it. Well, where can listeners find you if they want to learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, well, you can visit my website, which is laurendeweyconsulting.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can, of course, find me at Run Club, which
Yes.
is a fantastic organization to be a part of. So you can find me there. I will be also speaking at the Massachusetts Apartment Association Education Summit in October. I'll also be at Appsapalooza in Albany in October as well. So
Sounds
hopefully you
great.
can find me in one of those places.
I highly suggest going and finding Lauren and digging into what she's up to. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me here
So great.
today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Listeners, thank you for pressing play on this. I know you have so many opportunities for podcasts and sessions that you can consume, but we appreciate you coming out and listening to us today. If you are a marketing influencer in multifamily, either supplier or operator, I do encourage you to check out Cadence Marketing Solutions too, and especially Cadence Run Club, where Lauren just dropped that she is a fan of as well. So it's an online community for those of us who speak that language, and really a great place for the ideal member to just come hungry, humble, and smart and see what you learn and what you can give and share. We've made it our mission to support multifamily marketers and lead voices and resources for those who are playing in that space. If you enjoyed this podcast today, I really encourage you to please like, comment, or share it, and subscribe. And do visit the Multifamily Media Network. There's new hosts being dropped every month. Great new podcasts. I'm enjoying listening to all of them. And thanks again, Lauren, for coming out and being with us today.
Thanks
I
for
hope you
having
all
me.
go out and find that 1% better. Till next time.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, procurement platform, assistance to make your ordering simple. Visit chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day better.